this is Jason Morris with the Facebook group Real Estate Agents That Really Work. And today I want to talk to you about failure and how to overcome and come back from failure. You know, if you're listening to this, I know you've went on that listing appointment that you just knew you were going to get, and it turned out they listed with another agent. I had one recently where they were friends. They kept talking about buying a new house and selling their old house, and so I showed them probably 6 or 8 homes, even wrote up a couple of offers for them, and they kept talking about putting their current house on the market. Well, next thing I know, I didn't hear from them for a couple of weeks. I looked on Facebook, and she listed her house with a flat fee company. Then, on top of that, I noticed her husband unfriended me, and I was like, what the hell? That sucks. Even after 10 years, or over 10 years of being in the real estate business, that still kind of sucks. It stings a little bit. Sometimes it stings a little bit worse when it's a friend or family member than it does when it's a random person you don't know. But I've learned to develop a pretty thick skin, kind of move on quick. In the real estate business, the hardest thing sometimes is just to keep a positive mindset. It's easy to let those sort of things just consume your time and energy in your life. I could sit around and mope about the whole thing about how my friend listed her house with somebody else. But this business, you've got to learn this business can be a constant war between success and failure. You're going to go through times where you need adjustment and you can get a little bit complacent. You'll go through the seasons of life personally, and then your business will go through those same kind of seasons of your business. I've had times where I'd show up to listing appointments and it's like I can't do or say nothing wrong. Everybody loves me. They sign the paperwork, as soon as I walk through the door. It's like I introduce myself, shake their hand, and they sign everything. Then I go through a little stretch sometimes where I don't know if I get a little too cocky or a little bit too bold, and I feel like I'm getting thrown out of houses. And it happened 3 or 4 in a row sometimes, and I've learned to accept when I'm making calls and trying to set appointments. I will strike out way more times than I hit home runs, and that's just the way it is with everything. And that's normal. Most people will not answer the phone. More people will not answer the phone than people that will answer the phone. And when you fail, you need to learn how to handle this negative feeling. You can't live in it and dwell on it for days and weeks and stuff. You just need to accept sometimes that you won't get the listing, you won't be able to set the appointment that you needed to, and you just won't get appointments when you make the calls sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be like every call you make, you're going to get an appointment. Then sometimes it's going to be like, man, I've made hundreds of calls without even having a nice person on the phone, and it's just some days go like that. One of the keys to overcoming this negative feeling of failure quickly is just to get right back up and go again as quickly as possible. Jim Rohn said, if the villagers rest too long, it won't be long and the jungle will overtake the village. What this means and how it relates to us as real estate agents is if you don't get back to work and start making calls, you rest too long in your defeat, the negative thoughts are going to overtake your mind. You can't dwell on negative things going on in your life. You have to get right back up. You have to get back up to bat and swing again. If you mess up your schedule and don't make calls this morning, you need to make yourself feel guilty about it. Making sure you make your calls and prospecting, that should be it should not be a you should do it. It needs to be a you ought to do it. And I grew up, my granddad was a Baptist preacher, and he had a doctor's degree in philosophy, so lots of times he talked about word usage. And for those of you that don't know the difference between should and ought, go to dictionary.com or look them up. Should is a verb that's used to indicate obligation, duty, and correctness, where ought is also a verb, but is used to express a moral obligation or duty. An obligation, is something you need to do because it's the right thing to do. A moral obligation is something that you have to do for yourself and your family. What you need to do is change your mindset, especially when you're looking at failure and you've had a bad day or a bad week. Prospecting every morning needs to be something that you feel is a moral obligation for the betterment of yourself, your future, your family, your kids, your business, your household. It needs to be something you down deep feel like you're morally obligated to do. So when you mess up or don't show up, you need to feel a little guilt. When you don't get a listing, you need to feel a little sting. You need it to hurt bad enough that for a few minutes you go, what could I have done better? That's how you need to use this failure and this feeling of defeat. You need to go, what could I have done better? But you don't need to dwell on it. You need to get back out there and go on another appointment, make more calls and set up another appointment. Don't let the jungle overtake the village, or better yet, don't let the negative thoughts overtake your mind. Failure is only temporary. The length and time frame of failure and that feeling only last until your next success. So what you need to do is take a quick analysis. What could I have done better, said better, been more confident about? Those sort of things. Then work on those things. Failure isn't all negative. It's only negative if you allow it to be. You need to use it in a way to continuously improve. I'll tell you a quick story about myself. I used to work referrals from a program called it was the Dave Ramsey Affiliate Program. I was a Dave Ramsey affiliate, a real estate affiliate. This was like probably 7 or 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I'm not an affiliate anymore, but at the time there was no competition in the program. Most markets, they'd only allow 1 to 2 agents, and I was the only agent in my market. For those of you who don't know who Dave Ramsey is, he's a financial guru with a radio program that sells millions of books. He's got a program called Financial Peace where they talk about snowballing your debt, and it's actually taught in churches and stuff all over the place. The people that are part of his program that are looking for a Dave Ramsey affiliate, these people are a hardcore Dave Ramsey. They will actually go with just about anybody who's part of the program they're referred to through the program. It doesn't matter who it is. These appointments, when I first started doing them, these were a show up with the paperwork, enlist me. Well, at first it was. Then this agent in my market found out about the program. I didn't tell anybody about it, but he found out about it, I'm sure, through networking across the country. This guy was super sharp. He was polished. He'd been a Mike Ferry guy for years. I mean, this guy would show up. He'd have his suit on that fit perfectly. His hair looked perfect. He was one of those agents in my market that does tons of transactions, and he knows his scripts and knows his dialogues. He lists a lot of property. He makes a ton of money. I figured out when he was in the program, when all of a sudden, I mean, I'd been getting everyone I'd been going on. Then all of a sudden, like 5 or 6 appointments in a row that were appointments through the Dave Ramsey program, they didn't list with me. I mean, they didn't list with me, and then they told me basically they were going to list with this other guy, and I was like, what is going on here? So I called, realized that he was in the program, and honestly, like when I realized he was in the program, after you've went on 5 or 6 appointments against the same person, you go, man, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. I actually thought about quitting then, and but then what I did was I started like asking a lot of questions to the people. Why are you using him over me? And it started making me really better. I started working on my pre-listing package harder. I started working on my scripts and dialogues. I shortened my appointments. I was going on appointments to these people's houses that would last, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I started working on cutting these appointments down to 30 minutes, all business, super organized, showed up with the paperwork ready to sign. I mean, this was one of the events in my business, in my life, that was a failure and a feeling of failure that made me really get out there, refine what I was doing, and made me really, really good at going on appointments. What you need to do, and the way to come back from this failure, is to look at these things and look at how could I be better? How could I, if I was doing that same thing over again, what could I say better? What phrases could I say and what dialogue could I use to give a sense of urgency? You need to take those failures and that feeling of loss you have and evaluate them for improvement, then work on improving and getting out there and setting the next listing appointment. When you strike out, the best thing to do is get right back up there and try to swing again. This is Jason Morris with the Facebook group Real Estate Agents.